the OBX Wave Report. I am Robert Scribbler, your host, to discuss with you all things waves, weather, climate, and beach lifestyle. And for today, in the Outer Banks, we are feeling the influence of this. This big, beautiful, interesting storm system off the US East Coast. And I want to ask you what that looks like. What does that look like to you? Um, does that look like a nor'easter or does that look like a hurricane? I mean, in all honesty, that looks a lot like a hurricane in the satellite picture. Of course, we know that this is a nor'easter. We know that this is a cold core system out here in the North Atlantic, but look at this vortex, this classic cyclonic feature out here in the North Atlantic, just off the U.S. East Coast. This looks like it's about right off the Maryland Delaware border here, off the U.S. East Coast. And swirling out in the shipping lanes with extraordinarily strong winds, hurricane force winds overnight, yesterday overnight, and into the early day today, and kicking up some large surf out here. So for those of us on the Outer Banks interested in the surf, we've got this big field of waves being generated beneath the swirling clouds of this system. These waves propagating toward the US East Coast. We're starting to feel them on the Outer Banks right now as the wave conditions improve. We're already seeing rising wave conditions for most of the east-facing beaches. And this is weather, folks. This is nor'easter with a satellite shot that looks a lot like a hurricane, and we've got hurricane force winds in this nor'easter off the US East Coast. All right, let's look at the infrared satellite shot. Infrared satellite shot not as impressive as the surface, but you could still see this swirl of clouds here off the US East Coast. And as it's a little bit of a retrograde moving down to the south. It's getting connected up with a big front that runs all the way down, strings all the way down here into the Bahamas, and then runs all the way up to the Arctic. And I'll show you more about that later. We're going to possibly talk about that a little bit more in a special edition of the OBX Wave Report for today. And we're also going to get out to the surf today. I'm going to try and get some surfing in today, tomorrow, and Thursday. We'll see how that works out. But we'll get session 2, 3, and 4 for 2023. I got a goal of 150 surf sessions for this year, so I got to get to work. But in any case, yeah, big storm out here kicking up the waves. Let's look at the winds. I did talk about how we've got that front tapping into the Caribbean. And just look at this thing. This is so this cyclone here with the hurricane force winds is off the US East Coast. You got a front tapping into the Caribbean, and then this huge connection between the subtropics and the Arctic here. As the winds flow up from the south ahead of a massive front and they get swept into the Arctic, anchored by another powerful low. So it's almost like we've got a front here that is connected by two lows, like, let's see, twin low pressure systems connected by a massive front over. Looks like about 4,000 miles of distance. Just so impressive. And let's look at temperature. I'm very curious at how much warm air this is injecting into the Arctic. I know I wasn't necessarily thinking about getting into this for the wave report, but I am curious. So it is injecting quite a bit of warm air up into the Svalbard region and the region in Western Siberia here and parts of Scandinavia, but not getting too much into the North Polar region. So that's better news for the Arctic, although that is a very warm-sided system there. Look at this. We've got temperatures above freezing up here in northern Scandinavia. So let's look. 36 degrees Fahrenheit up here, and in this time of year it's typically very, very cold. So yeah, lots of above normal temperatures being driven by this massive system here. All right. So I did want to show you the synopsis of mid-Atlantic waters here in association with this hurricane force low provided by the National Weather Service Marine Outlook. And for today, a hurricane force low pressure system centered just east of the outer mid-Atlantic waters near 39 north, 63 west this morning will continue east to southeast while moving well into the North Atlantic later today and tonight. So yeah, that's what we've got. A hurricane force low off the U.S. East Coast. It's not directly affecting the U.S. East Coast with major conditions, although we do have small craft advisories up from, looks like Hatteras Island on north to Maine, with the exception being Virginia Beach. And out west, we've got another frontal boundary heading our way, but the main event is that hurricane force low. Now, shifting to look at a little bit of a weather outlook here before I get into our local advisories. We have that hurricane force low off the U.S. East Coast, and we do have a tendency for storms to form off the U.S. East Coast. So that's something to keep an eye on. This one was a bit of a surprise. So we want to keep a weather eye out there. The ocean water temperatures are much warmer than normal. And so if we get energy and instability out over there, you've already got that lift. So storms can spin up to more powerful intensity due to that extra fuel provided. Out in the central US, in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, looks like we've got a pattern of more extreme weather on the way and heavier rains. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And then out in the Pacific Northwest, we have a tendency for very stormy conditions, although that is more typical for this time of year, particularly in the La Nina pattern, and we're seeing that. For the Southwest, though, conditions are dry, which is a concern due to the ongoing drought there. All right, so let's get down to some local observations, tell you what the waves are doing in association with our hurricane force low. And what we're seeing right now is the swell is starting to come in from the east. And right now, the primary swell is more of like a shorter term swell, but the larger swell coming in from the east is starting to cross the present swell. And over time, that is going to dominate. And so what I've done is provided you with some east-facing beach observations. And here we're using our Google Maps for just information geolocation purposes. So at Jeanette's Pier right now, the waves are in the range of 2 to 4 feet with a primary swell coming in at 7 seconds and a secondary swell coming in at 9 seconds. The secondary swell is the one that's coming in far away from the storm. That is the larger swell. That swell will tend to dominate more and more as time goes by. That secondary swell is closer to 4 feet with the primary swell coming in at around 2 feet. So that is worth noting. Winds right now are out of the northeast at 6 miles per hour. That is very light. And that's going to help to enforce a glacier and glacier condition for the surf as the day progresses. Air temperatures right now are in the range of about 45, 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperature is pretty cold at 48, but might be warming up a little bit with that more easterly flow coming in. The expected high for today is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the conditions are right now very clear, and we might get to partly cloudy as we progress later on into the day. Now, I do want to talk about the model forecast for Jeanette's Pier because over the course of the day today, the swell is expected to build. And by tomorrow, we're expected to see 4 to 7, 4 to 6 foot surf. This surf coming in as the air conditions, the wind conditions are expected to be rather calm. So we're likely to see, if these swells do arrive as expected, and I don't really see anything that's really getting in the way of them, we are likely to see these beautiful swells coming in and under rather calm conditions. So these are likely to be just nice, glassy 4 to 7, 3 to 6, 4 to 6 foot swells here at Jeanette's Pier. And this condition is likely to be pretty typical for most of the east facing beaches. So from Duck all the way south to Buxton, we're likely to see those beautiful waves. Of course, the wave heights are going to vary based on your location and how those swells line up close to shore. Jeanette's Pier actually looks like one of the good spots for this swell. And then as the swell's likely to peak tomorrow morning sometime early in the morning, and then just really slowly taper off, but not taper off rapidly because the influence of that hurricane force low is expected to stick around through Thursday. So even as we get into Thursday, likely 3 to 4, 3 to 5 foot surf and glassy conditions as well. So it is a really nice period of waves in association with a hurricane force low off the US East Coast that's expected to shift that swell in from the east, and we're expected to see some beautiful surf as a result. So I'm going to head on down to Rodanth or Rodanthe and give you an observation there. Right now, waves at Rodanth are not quite as tall as at Jeanette's Pier. It's about the same. I mean, the secondary swell is coming in at about 3.5 feet there at Rodanth, and the secondary swell at Jeanette's might be 3.6, 3.7. So actually, really not much variance. It's just that it's kind of like a rounding thing right now. But at Rodanth, the official wave reports showing 2 to 3 foot surf. The 3 foot swells coming in at basically about 3.5 feet, so a little bit taller than three. And with the primary swell coming in more out of the north, um, with the past north winds. This is like a remnant swell from the north winds of the past couple of days. And then the new swell, the secondary swell, is coming in from the east, and that's going to start to dominate over the course of the day. And the primary swell coming in at 9 seconds with those 2 foot waves, and secondary swell coming in at 7 seconds with those 3.5 foot waves at Rodanth. Winds are gentle out of the north at 9 miles per hour. That's a cross shore flow, but excuse me, with that gentle wind, um, you're not likely to have too much effect on the ocean surface. It's going to be likely getting glacier and glacier throughout the day. Air temperatures at Rodanth are 48 degrees, so a little bit cold, a little bit warmer than Jeanette's, but the ocean water temperature much warmer at 57 degrees. Amazing difference there between Jeanette's and Rodanth. If you want to get to warmer water, head on south. It doesn't take you far to get to warmer water. We probably won't do that today because I've got, your wave reporter has lots of things to do. um, we're getting our house weatherized for the crazy weathers here in the Outer Banks step by step. So we've got projects. I've got a lot of work to do to make the monies to get that done. I might do some special segments on beach lifestyle segments on getting your house set up in the Outer Banks for the more extreme weather and climate conditions that are here, and the more extreme climate conditions that we expect. Of course, we can't prepare for all eventualities, but we can get ourselves in a good spot as far as resiliency goes for our home. So it's kind of interesting, the things that you can do. And we've got a whole plan both to get our home both resilient and renewable. And so we're going to do it both. We're gonna basically turn our house into a microcosm climate response thing. And we've already got the clean transport set up, but we're gonna up our game when it comes to reducing our carbon emissions and adding resiliency. So stay tuned for that. I'm pretty stoked about the work that we're going to be doing over the coming weeks, months, and years, because this is another big project. We've got lots of projects here on the Outer Banks, which is actually really cool, really fun. All right, so for our last location, I know I digressed a little bit, but I mean, come on. We have the interwebs, we have the YouTubes, we're not stuck in a format, so we can digress, right? So let's go down to Avon for our third location. And it is worth noting that we've got 3 to 4 foot waves down there at Buxton. So Buxton is again the big wave spot, but I'm not going to do a full report at Buxton. Our last location for today is going to be at Avon. And right now at Avon, the waves are also in the range of 2 to 3 feet with that larger surf building in from the east now. Um, Primary swell coming in at 9 seconds, larger swell coming in at 8 seconds from the east, starting to become dominant. And again, that secondary swell coming from the east, coming off that hurricane force low pressure system, is in the range of 3 to 5 feet. Winds are out of the north at Avon, also at 9 miles per hour. That is a cross shore with a slightly offshore component there, with a slight southeast cant to the shore there. Air temperatures are 48 degrees, and the ocean water temperature is very notable here at 63 degrees. So from Jeanette's to Avon, a distance of 25 miles approximate, maybe, yeah, 25 to 30 miles. It's more like 30 miles down here to Buxton. So about 25 miles from, yeah, maybe about 30. I'm just looking at the scale here. Yeah, about 30 miles to the south of Jeanette's Pier, Avon, with a 63-degree water temperature, 15-degree ocean water temperature just in that very short distance. And I'm going to zoom out and show you how short a distance that is. That's like from there to there. And look at the US East Coast. It's just a blip. And the reason why is you got that Gulf Stream. It just goes whoosh, right offshore here. Just boop, makes that right turn out into the Atlantic Ocean. And then you get the Labrador snaking down. All right, so yeah, we got the air temperatures at 48, ocean water temperatures 63. Weather conditions for Avon expected to be sunny today with some clouds moving in later in the day, but not getting too cloudy, just getting into partly cloudy. Air temperatures remaining in the lower 50s for most of the Outer Banks today, so still pretty cool in the air. You're definitely going to want your your weather, your cold weather gear, your wetsuits, your hood, your booties, your gloves. But Avon there with those warmer water temperatures is going to be a lot more pleasant. We're going to get out at Jeanette's, and that's going to be cold with those 48-degree water temperatures. I'll tell you how my Psycho hood stands up, as well as my O'Neill booties and my Zucker gloves. I got out in similar conditions about a week ago, so it shouldn't be too bad. Hopefully, I won't freeze. into Thursday, and then not much yet on the horizon in the 4 to 8 day outlook. Okay. So I do want to talk a little bit more about this low. Right now, the hurricane force low is in the range of about 977 millibars. That is a pretty strong storm. I wouldn't say that's insanely strong, but it's expected to deepen a little bit to 974. Actually, hold on. Let's make sure we are. I don't know if this model is updated. Let's make sure we're updated. Might not have been updated. Mea culpa if it was not. I might have been looking at yesterday's model. So let's go ahead and update it to today's model. Aha! Yes. So here we go. So right now the storm has passed its peak intensity, and that's what gave me pause when I was looking at this, and then I saw that the initialization was for yesterday. So um, right now we've got a 984 millibar low. This is weakened from yesterday. It reached its peak yesterday evening likely, and it's expected to continue to weaken as it heads off to the north toward Greenland, and then start to intensify again as we get off the tip of Greenland, getting that cold influence from Baffin Bay, that conflict between warm and cold, providing it with energy as it starts to intensify off the east coast of Greenland and heads off toward Iceland, and then followed on by another low pressure system. So, main story about this low is hurricane force winds on the backside, big waves. It's heading off into the central Atlantic. It's weakening, and then it's going to be an issue for Greenland and Iceland over the coming couple of days. And I'm just going to go ahead and run this model so you can see the storms progress. We do have disturbed weather. Wow, hold on. Okay, so I said wow. So 992, that's not weak. It does look like we got a decent storm system coming in through the Ohio River Valley and the Great Lakes by Thursday. That sweeping on off the coast by Saturday, although dragging a bit of a frontal boundary behind it. Might be some interesting weather here for the Outer Banks, but I must remain focused on the present storm, the present hurricane force low. But it is worth noting that by Sunday we get a bit of a coastal low here off of the Outer Banks, and that says nor'easter to me. So we'll see. Yeah, here we go. Then this thing kind of loops in toward the Outer Banks. Looks like pretty tight isobars packed between a high to the north. Storm's not too strong, but that could still produce some gale force winds. Ooh, sinking down to 994 millibars just off Hatteras here on Monday. Look at those isobars. That looks like a pretty classic nor'easter. Yep. Okay, well we might get another nor'easter, and looks like Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So we might, oh my God, look at this thing out in the North Atlantic. See, we're in discovery phase, and holy dear God, 937 millibars. That's like category 4, 5 hurricane strength right out there. Wow, the North Atlantic's going to get stormy over the next week. Man, is this something to look at. Okay, yeah, I was like hyper focused on this hurricane force low off the US East Coast, but we have two discoveries here in the model forecast, global forecast system model pointing toward another nor'easter for the Outer Banks. This one relatively, I wouldn't call it like super intense, but 994 millibars is nothing to shake a stick at. And given the way that this last nor'easter spun up, we might want to really keep a weather eye toward this thing here. If we do have a nor'easter forming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, this could be an interesting weather event for the Outer Banks and also produce some serious surf here. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But look at this beast south of Greenland, man. Okay, okay, hold on. Let's back this up. Where did this storm come from? Okay, remember that storm I was talking about in the central US? So this thing is expected to sweep on through the Great Lakes so forming over the Mississippi River Valley on Wednesday and Thursday, sweeping over the Great Lakes on Friday, moving out off the Canadian Maritimes into Saturday off of Newfoundland here. And then watch it make this left turn across the mouth of Baffin Bay and toward Greenland. Okay, so as a 980 millibar system, going a little bit retrograde here into 973. This in a 6-hour time frame, dropping about 8 millibars of pressure, then dropping another 12 millibars of pressure in another 6 hours. So in 12 hours, 21 millibar drop. In 18 hours, God, 942. Looks like about a 40 millibar drop. In 24 hours, 937. 45 millibar drop, 24 hours, 936. Wow. Yeah, looks like about a 46 millibar drop in 24 to 30-hour time frame. That is a serious bomb right there. And that is extraordinary powerful. Look at those isobars. Look how packed closely that is. That's just crazy wind there. That is something to look at. And then that thing heads on off toward Greenland. Yikes. That might blow some warm winds up slope there on Greenland. Hangs out and then weekends. But wow. Okay. So a beast really expected to form by Monday of next week. This in the global forecast system model. This a little bit more than a week away. So grain of salt territory. All right. I do want to talk waves. But let's see if we get this. I don't think we'll get it in the, no, we're not yet there. Okay, so I just wanted to see if Earth Null School produced this. The Earth Null School can only go about 5 days out. And so I did want to see this thing start to come together in Earth Null School. This is the storm here in the global forecast system model that's expected to bomb out south of Greenland here. It hasn't bombed out yet, but we're at the end of the Earth Null School model. I will provide a segment on this particular storm tomorrow. We'll see if the models are expecting it to become as strong as it is predicted today. All right, I've done enough on that. That was a surprise discovery. Now let's go back to our hurricane force low. Man, stormy North Atlantic. This is kind of crazy. All right, so starting to get real out there, guys. Okay, let's get back to our present hurricane force low before we go on to the next hurricane force low. But right now, off the US East Coast, we have this hurricane force low that is producing some massive significant wave heights in the range of 34 feet off the US East Coast. That's where we're getting that swell from for the Outer Banks. Of course, we don't have significant wave heights in the range of 34 feet or anywhere near that in the near offshore environment. We're looking at 4 to 6 feet right now on the Outer Banks. But let's just watch as the waves propagate. I'm going to go for a let's see, I believe these are 3-hour progressions. We're going to go 3-hour progressions as the wave field around this thing broadens. And let's just get a point off of, I'm going to pick a point off of the Pea Island National Wildlife Refuge off of S turns. So right now, significant wave heights in the range of about 6 feet off of S turns. And then dropping down a little bit in the next 3 hours according to the model. And then also continuing to remain in the 5-foot range in the next 6 hours. And then remaining steady as the swell starts to line up more with the coast, which is a very favorable condition. And then starting to pick up again as we get into later into the night. And then with the swell rising as we get out past midnight and then rising again. So right now at about 4 a.m. local time for the forecast. So 4 a.m. local time tomorrow morning, swell expected to be coming from the east at about 7 feet. And this is very early in the morning on Wednesday. And then getting on further into the day on Wednesday by about 7 o'clock in the morning, 7.5 foot swell. And just note the angle, very nice straight angle close to the shore here. And then maintaining in the 7-foot range as we head on into the afternoon hours on Wednesday. and then just slowly dying down as we head on late into Wednesday night and then into Thursday with a swell in the range of 5 feet in the near offshore environment early Thursday morning, and then maintaining in around the 4 to 5 foot range as we get into Thursday afternoon. So the main features of this swell is the fact that we're getting this swell from a hurricane force storm. It's going to kick up to around 7.5 feet in the near offshore environment. It's going to be coming in from the east, which is a nice angle for the coast. And then the air conditions are expected to be very calm. So these waves are expected to line up with the beaches, provide us with a good swell, and provide us with a just kind of really nice glassy waves. So really good wave conditions expected for the Outer Banks over the next so from over the next 3 days. So today, Tuesday, running into Wednesday, and then running into Thursday. Now let's look at Friday, Friday the 10th. So we've got the swell maintaining in the 4 to 5 foot range as we get into early in the morning on the 10th, and then dropping down a little bit as we get a bit more southerly wind ahead of the next storm system. This next storm system possibly becoming a nor'easter here. So we're going to want to pay attention to this. So it does look like even into Friday, the waves, considering the angle to the shore, are likely to still remain pretty decent, pretty rideable. Now I'm just curious how things progress. So yeah, so you start to get this southerly winds on the south side of this front. You can see the front forming here, even in the waves. You see the influence of the front on the ocean surface here as the waves are kicking up to the south of the Outer Banks with those southerly winds, southwesterly winds ahead of the front, northeasterly winds behind it. And we're on the north side right now in this forecast. See, now the front starts to move up to the north here, and you get that wave influence as you get that southerly swell. So these south-facing beaches are starting to look nicer, or well, starting to look like larger waves on Friday. And then as we get into Saturday, this is actually early Saturday in the model. And then the swell gets more confused as the low gets closer, or the front gets closer to the coast. And then, yep, we get a north and northeasterly swell starting to come in later in the day on Saturday. And there we go. Yeah, there's your nor'easter influence. Okay, so waves kicking up into the 8 to 9 foot range later in the day on Saturday with some northeasterly winds coming in. And then much later in the day on Saturday, still remaining in the 8 to 9 foot range, and you get more northeasterly winds. And then the system appears to be lingering with 9 foot waves, 11 foot waves as we start to get into Sunday. Wow, it's going to be, whoa, 14 foot significant wave heights as we get into early Sunday morning. Wow, okay, this could be interesting. Yep. So another nor'easter expected to form off the Outer Banks and kick up some serious gnarly surf. This is probably pretty windy as well. Let's look at this. The air model is not there yet. Okay, hold on. Let's go back to now. There's a big old hurricane force low off the East Coast here with those sustained winds right now in the range of looks like 50 to 60 miles per hour. Okay, now let's advance this thing to Saturday. I want to see what the winds are expected to do. So let's see, that is tomorrow running into Thursday. Still very calm as we get into Thursday, and then into Friday we get those southerly winds. Well, that's late Thursday. Southwesterly winds on Friday. Let's put the little pin here. 16, not too strong. And then also, yeah, still actually remaining calm, although to the south there you got some stronger winds. And then the storm starts to develop. You start to see a low start to spin up here. And then boom, wow, look at that. Okay, so as we get into the later day on Saturday, we're getting strong northeasterly winds and easterly winds. And then you start to see that low. There's a low down there. You can see that swirl in the air. Oops, let's bring it back. Okay, let's see how much we can get. Strong easterly and northeasterly winds. The low is starting to develop Let's just look here down at Avon. Yeah, it looks like it's starting to get to near gale force down off of Avon and Buxton late in the day on Saturday. And then, yep, near gale force winds coming straight on shore late in the day on Saturday and then into early Sunday. This is classic nor'easter, folks. Yeah, looks like I bet we'll see gale warnings for Saturday and Sunday, or gale watches at the very least, as this storm develops. This thing is expected to move very slowly. And look at that. There, you got the front right there, the confluence. So the air is, look at this. This is classic. This is a classic nor'easter. So you've got the cold front here. You've got the warm front here, and you've got the low behind the two. So right ahead of it, you've got these warm airs coming from the tropics and the subtropics. Behind it, you've got these colder, drier airs coming from the continent. And then to the north and east, you've got colder, moist airs being pushed down the backside of a high pressure system. Uh, Classic nor'easter. Doesn't look like it's expected to be too crazy strong, but I know I've talked a lot. Let's go to now in the ocean, and I want to look at the sea surface temperatures. So just look at this. So these ocean temperatures out here in the Gulf Stream are 4 to 6. So much warmer than normal out here in the Gulf Stream, 4 to 6 degrees. Let's look at Fahrenheit. Yeah, I've been doing Fahrenheit. 7 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit, not 7 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit above normal out here in the Gulf Stream. And then large region of water, much warmer than normal. So because you've got these warmer than normal waters, you've got more energy. So something to look at when we start to see those classic nor'easters starting to form. So something to look at. Wow. Okay, lots of news in the OBX wave report today. We've got a hurricane force low off the US East Coast. It is going to bring us some really nice surf here in the Outer Banks. And then in the forecast, looks like we might get a nor'easter come the weekend. So thank you for joining me for this edition of the OBX Wave Report. We didn't talk a lot about climate, we did talk a lot about weather, and we did talk a lot about waves. But as I always ask you, please remember to do everything you can to help transition